my fingers. I started noticing my fingers. I couldn't feel them. And I looked down, and there's this friend of mine that I work with, this guy, Clint. And I looked at him. I said, Clint, I can't feel my fingers, and they're white. What is happening? And he said, oh, that's Raynaud's. And I said, what the hell is this? And I had a cold drink with me, like a seltzer or whatever. And I had touched the can, and now I was playing, and I didn't have gloves, and it was evening. About 3 or 4 more holes, and now it had spread to 4 more fingers. I couldn't feel anything. So I excused myself, and I went to find a bathroom. There was no warm running water in the bathroom. And so I literally had to leave and get in my car and go to a place where I could find warm running water. And I submerged my fingers in the water until the circulation returned. And ever since then, and that's, 20, I don't even want to think about how many years, it's been the same. And it would be at the most unusual moment. It could have been in the middle of the summertime. If I touched something cold, I would lose circulation in 1 or 2 fingers. And it just became who I was, and that was my life. And of course I did the research. It's it's an autoimmune disease. And I started thinking, is this going to lead down the road to, other autoimmune diseases? When Kevin started cold plunging 2.5 years ago, he started just going into the lakes in January. And I would go walk with the dogs, and I'd walk home. But then he found this Health X place, and he started going into the Morozko Forge, and I would go with him, and I would wait with him, and then we'd go get coffee. And then one day, the woman who worked there was amazing, and she's, Kevin wanted me to go in. I was like, no, I have no interest. And she said, just try it and go in.
We all hate it.
So I tried it. I hated it. I was in for 20 seconds. I couldn't believe how painful it was. I couldn't form a sentence. I was like, I'm having a stroke. Get me out of this thing. And then Dawn, who worked there, she said, you have to go in with intention. She said, bring your shoulders away from your ears. Even if you have to, bring your toes out. Put yourself in the V formation. And I'm telling you, that was a game changer. And I would close my eyes, and Kevin started counting for me. And he would count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and in the beginning it was 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Then I was up to a minute. I was really proud of myself. And then there was one day we were there, and he said, my eyes were closed, and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and I opened my eyes, and I had been in for 2.5 minutes. And I said, you asshole, I can't believe you have been there for that. So, but then all of a sudden I started feeling better. I started feeling more energetic. And it took me about 6 months to realize that I never had Raynaud's anymore. And actually, I shouldn't say never, because there are times now, even now, when I'll get in the plunge, and then I'll get out, and the tips of my fingers, immediately afterwards sometimes will have decrease in circulation, but it comes back within minutes, and it's not a problem.
Deirdre, sometimes that happens to me. That's a normal, healthy, physiological reaction, I would say, at the tips of your fingers. Yeah.
I'll tell you, since there is a difference between the Morozko, your product, and just regular cold plunging. I don't know what it is that's in the tank, but the ionization of the water is much more powerful. It's just very different. But so as far as the Raynaud's goes, I do believe that it's pretty much cured me. I don't have any medical evidence of it, just empirical evidence.
I'm not worried about that. You are the 4th documented case of recovery from Raynaud's using cold plunge therapy. And this presents as kind of a paradox to people, because a lot of the medical advice that they'll get is say, oh, you're very sensitive to the cold. You should stay warm, avoid the cold things, bundle up. And the irony is that only makes it worse. Instead, there's a principle called stress inoculation, where a little bit of a stressor, it's used for phobias, for example, a little bit of exposure to whatever the phobia is. If it's spiders, they might start somebody out just looking at a picture of a spider from across the room, and then 2 weeks later, they got tarantulas crawling all over them like they're in Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. And I'm exaggerating for humor, but this is what happened to you. First, you went there to watch your husband do it. And there is some psychological reaction that you're going to have because you are empathetically connected to your husband. And it might take a few weeks for you to just be there and be okay watching him go in. Then they're encouraging you to go in. And actually, this was too much of a leap. Like the Morozko's colder than the Atlantic Ocean in the winter time. You were going all in right away. And I wouldn't have recommended this. So it's no wonder you had a panic attack in that first moment. But Dawn sounds really good because Raynaud's is associated with the sympathetic division of the central nervous system. It is a psychological and physiological feedback loop that takes anxiety and amplifies it. A little bit of vasoconstriction turns into fear of pain and worse vasoconstriction. And that anxiety stimulates more vasoconstriction. And this whole feedback loop gets out of control. When Dawn is saying, you're going to go in with intention. And she's talking to you in that voice that calms you down. And she's going to put your body in a certain position. She's allowing that dive reflex. She's helping that parasympathetic response dominate. That's breaking the sort of ironic feedback loop of the Raynaud's. And now every time you have an exposure, like you were saying, first it's just 10 seconds, you get out. Then it's 20 seconds, you get out. You're gaining confidence. Your body is physiologically adapting. Brown fat, vasoconstriction, and your nervous system is psychologically adapting to the stress to the point where you can do 2.5 minutes, or you can take your husband's hand and go running into, Narragansett Bay or whatever it is that you're going to be in and have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic story.
Yeah.
For other people listening who might feel motivated or inspired by your story, I don't necessarily want them to do it full on, like at 34 degrees like you did, but there's a few things that they can do to help. There are thermogenic foods. Ginger is one. Green tea is one. Cinnamon is one. And so for someone with Raynaud's to prepare themselves for some of this, for titrating cold exposure, doing a little stress inoculation, they might make themselves a tea with ginger root, cinnamon stick, green tea bag in there, add some honey, because that'll make it taste like something better than lawn clippings or whatever. You drink that before you go in, wait a few minutes, and you have already activated any brown fats you had, beginning to create your own heat. The cinnamon is also good for insulin sensitivity. The ginger is also good for circulation. Now you do a little cold exposure, and part of your confidence will be fortified by the tea that you drank and the story you're telling yourself, because it's great placebo, but your physiology will be fortified by the thermogenic action of the foods that you've eaten. Chili peppers also do this. Any spicy hot food. But I've never made a tea out of chili peppers, so I don't think of that as a comfort food.